Thank you very much, Naeem, for your time today. We have known each other for almost 4 months now. It is quite time has passed, and we have been working together on your cold email agency to automate your operations, centralize some stuff, and we have progressed a lot. And during this time, like what I have noticed is that you guys have like one of the best performing campaigns which I have seen by far when it comes to the reply rates and also like interested reply rates. So you guys have interested reply rates, which equals to most agencies' reply rates. So, so yeah, like most of the time, like companies like flex with how many replies they're receiving, and out of that, like 5% is like interested replies. But like I can say legitimately that you have on some campaigns like 10, 15, 20% reply rate and 70 and like 80% interested reply rate. So I really wanted to discuss like how you are achieving like this kind of results. And also like on the next step, I really want to tell us what kind of like clients you serve to achieve this kind of results and like what is your collaboration with them, because like it is not easy to like choose clients and to serve clients that well. So Mike is yours and would love to hear you.
Nice. All right. Well, firstly, thanks so much for inviting me to chat, Sergey. I'm excited to be here. Secondly, didn't know that we were performing so well, so that's really reassuring to hear. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, isn't there, that goes into that, and we can unpack it. But I think the key thing that guides all of our campaigns is we focus on three pillars, and those three pillars, if we get those right, each one of them increases the chances of a positive reply. The first one is just relevance. And I don't mean relevance in like, hey, we went to the same uni, or like, hey, I can see you work at this company. Using AI and, Perplexity and all those sorts of tools to set really rich insights on the prospect so that when we open up the message, the first line is something where they go, wow, this person's actually taken the time to get to know me. And if you can layer in then something like mentioning a mutual connection that you both know, or something that warms up the message slightly, then it'll be even stronger. But mainly it's about like, what is it that you're saying in the first line which gives you a reason for getting in touch? You're not just barging into someone's inbox and saying like, hey, do you want this thing? So that's kind of the first thing. I think that immediately lowers people's skepticism and increases people's trust. And those are the two levers we're always trying to pull with cold
And
outreach.
what I want to dive deep in this is that like lots of people talk about like first lines and stuff like that, but do you also like concentrate on subject lines itself?
Yeah, man. And we've just got to a point actually where AI is fully generating our subject lines, but we follow the practice of like 1 to 3 words, super boring, lowercase, and something that would feel like an email from one colleague to another. Like if I emailed you and I wrote in the subject line 15 to 30 leads a day guaranteed, you'd be like, are you drunk? Like, what are you on about? Like, that's, I know you. Like, so you kind of want to, I guess, create that level of familiarity. So our subject lines are like so dull. They just relate to the topic of that first line, and it's really plain. But because every email and every subject line is bespoke, it's also really helping with deliverability. So I think that really helps as well. So yeah, subject line, first line, and really tailored. And interestingly, just to give away the kind of secrets here, that level of relevance and that level of kind of copywriting is quite hard to achieve with 4.0 Mini, which is like the cold emailer's default model. And actually it's the one where we probably veer more into Claude Sonnet and those sorts of models, because it's really worth that first bit being like absolutely spot on. The other two pillars then are social proof, which everyone knows about, but I think people use social proof in the wrong way, and they like massively oversell something they've achieved. So like no one believes you when you say, we've just taken this company from 1 to 2 million in 3 months, even if you have. Like, in my other agency, we have actually achieved results like that, but we can't claim to have done that to a stranger because they'd be like, no, you didn't. Like you might have done a small part of that and then the business did everything else or something. So be really subtle with social proof. Like, we've just been doing some work with the guys over at X. Like, you don't need to talk about the explosive results you achieved or
So
like
you don't
stuff like
mention
that.
results at all, yeah?
No, we do, but I think it's just about not overselling the results in like you achieved the impossible, because unless you genuinely did and you can back that up, then it just doesn't really work anymore. And it's also, I think, quite a weird thing for someone to receive, like someone showing up in their inbox unannounced and then effectively flexing. Like it's like if you did that to a stranger and you just walked up to them and said like, hey, how you doing? I just drove my car 200 miles an hour. How you doing? Like, it's like such an odd thing to open up a relationship with. So be more subtle. One thing that works really well is like if you've won like awards or maybe you've got a significant investor, just dropping that into the signature. Like it just
Uh,
shows that you're
What I
legit.
want to ask is like, do you use numbers in emails? Because like what I have found out, for example, from my experience, is that sometimes when you use numbers, like I used to do cold email myself, and like when I used to say like we booked like X amount of meetings or like we generated this amount of money and stuff like that, I think it used to like trigger spam filters. I'm not sure if like you can't never be sure like 100%
Mm.
about the filters, but like I always had the gut feeling that it was damaging the copy template itself. So it would be super nice to hear like what are your experiences in that?
That's a good question. I would hazard a guess that any mention of money, if you're using a currency symbol, will likely trigger some sort of spam symbol because it feels a bit salesy. I think it's deeper than that, though. I think even if you are delivering, it's what number you're using. So, like, if you reached out and said, like, hey, we've just booked 4 meetings for this agency and they were with these brands, like, that's believable. If you reach out and say, hey, we booked 17 meetings for this agency and they've generated this much pipeline revenue, it's like immediately off-putting, because my take, and a lot of like our clients I think say this as well, more than like 10 actual high value, like commercial value meetings a month is a lot for like a busy founder or a busy salesperson to process. I know
Yeah.
there'll be like tech, BDMs and SDRs listening to this and they're like, no, it isn't. But it is when you're like doing cold outreach and you've got to not just qualify, but you've got to nurture and educate and all that sort of stuff. 10 is like a super busy month, like
Yeah.
for a small business. So I think it's more about the number that you use and how you quantify that. And I think if you're a little more grounded, even if you did achieve explosive results, you can have that conversation with them once you're on the call. But the thing that's going to resonate with them is like, this person understands my problem and I believe that they can solve that problem. I'm not, looking at this person as someone that's going to completely 10x my business, but they clearly know what they're doing here, and I'm open to having a conversation. So yeah, so the first pillar is relevant, second social proof, and then the third is it's just the call to action. We call it a killer CTA, and there's an interesting point here to make. I thought until quite recently the key to a call to action was like really high value for the prospect, really low risk, low friction. And that's what
Mm.
everyone kind of does. You reach out and you
Yeah.
say, like, well, if I can, you guys could say, like, if I could audit your agency for you and show you where you could be saving 4 hours a day, no need for a call. Like most people would go, yeah, all right, like
Yeah,
show
but
me.
but
Like,
it has so much side effect. Like I used to like if you are just doing cold outreach and you are responsible for only like generating interested replies, you're like, yeah, fuck it. Like I have like 70 interested replies, but ask the sales team like who has to like close that deal, and then ask the
mm,
developer or like engineer who has to actually do that audit. So basically, like in a nutshell, like it sounds like very sexy and cool to like offer this guy like Alex or Mosey like irresistible offers, but like when you
yeah,
run a business, it's like you you should spend lots of time and money to actually make it happen. And
Mm.
like I'm also like I understand where you're going with this, with hard call to actions. And I'm also like really supportive of that because like there are some times when you just don't want to meet some people because they just waste your time. And if you
Mm.
make call to action like soft enough, you will like give so much time and energy to people who don't have either like money or interest to like invest in your service. That is unbelievable.
Yeah,
It's
man.
unbelievable.
I think your thinking shifts, and I'm sure this has happened for you as well, when you are quite blunt and you are quite direct, and you say like, would this be worth discussing further, or would this be worth a quick call? And they say yes, and you're like, oh, some people are ready. Like some people are ready
Yeah.
to buy this thing. Like that does work. But what I was going to say is there are two schools of thought, and actually we kind of leverage both. Go in with the hard call to action first, and that, with a slight caveat, that's dependent on who you're contacting. So if you're contacting the CEO, the busy founder, particularly of a sub 10 million revenue company who's
Mhm.
probably very operational and very busy, they just want you to get to the point. They don't want you to send over a 6-minute Loom video on how you're going to revolutionize their process. They can't be asked with that. So, but if you're going maybe for a slightly larger organization, or you're going for a head of department, or it's a very niche area of the business, that nurture thing can work quite well. But yeah, our approach, at least with email, is to go hard initially, and then if you don't get that reply, move them into a second batch of kind of outreach for maybe a month or two kind of time, where you do take a more nurtury, softer approach and test out that as well. But the key with that sort of approach, and this is why it's so much work, is you offer up the lead magnet. You kind of get that initial raise of their hand. They digest whatever you've sent them, and then you set up a follow-up sequence. What did you think of it? Like, if it was of interest, like, I might be able to do this as well. And you just kind of build them back up to a hard call to action. And it does work. Like, it is worth doing and not completely forgetting about that lead, but it's just a slow burn. And I think the big shift in how we're working and why our results differ, I think, to most outbound agencies, is we are effectively doing ABM at scale. Like, we're building a list of 300 people that we know qualify and are a good fit. We're researching them based on 15 different kind of triggers and insights, trying to understand who's going to be the best person to reach out at the right time,
And
reaching out to them, being direct. If that doesn't work, try being softer. If that doesn't work, put them into a did not respond kind of list, and then hit them again in 3 months, and just kind of continually outreach until you get a conversation.
one question which I have is like, do you have any specific segments, for example, like which you work with the most of the time?
Yeah,
Uh,
man. Yeah, good question. Yes. So, and this has only been a real recent shift. So when I started Avalanche, like most, new businesses, we kind of said yes to anything. It's like any B2B company that needed leads. And that was a, real baptism of fire in terms of education on like who is good to work with. And we work with SaaS companies and cybersecurity company. Cyber's really hard, by the way, if anyone's trying that. Recruitment firms, agencies. And where we've landed now is actually our sweet spot is agencies, which doesn't surprise me looking at it, now, because obviously I've been running another agency for nearly 10 years. So I know that market really well, and I'm connected with lots of people in the agency world as well. So we are mainly focused on agencies and B2B service businesses. We do have a couple of tech and kind of SaaS clients, and we still, entertain those conversations if people need help. But I think agencies is our sweet spot.
oh, you mean marketing agencies, yeah?
Yes, not cold email agencies, because those guys should be able to do it themselves.
And like for them, who you target the most of the time? Like if marketing agency comes, like what is your target audience? And is it also like I know probably like most of the part of the answer, but like what I want to understand, like you are from UK and you live there. And like do you also like target local market or do you also go international and stuff like that? And how differentiate like how much difference is there? Because I'm Georgian and I have always lived in Georgia. And like when you target like people from Georgia, I think it is much, more different because like first thing they ask me on the call is like, where is Georgia? And and if you have like on LinkedIn it says London or like UK or something like that, it must be different kind of experience.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. So yes, most of our clients initially we target UK companies, depending on the sector that they focus on. So like one agency we work with focuses on charities, one focuses on, well, they have like four, like retail, automotive, like all the kind of classics. And most of them we're kicking off the campaigns with the very top. So we'll focus on the CEO, C-suite, and sort of if that doesn't work, we might move our way down. But where we have started to expand some of our campaigns now is English speaking countries beyond the UK, which are a complete ball ache for the time zone. So like we probably go as far as like America, but like we're like previously we have run campaigns to Australia and New Zealand, and those are great markets, but like when you then have to do the meeting like 6 a.m. or 9 p.m. like every day, like it just becomes unsustainable. So yeah, we kind of primarily focused on the UK markets, but then we have clients that operate all across Europe and have lots of clients in the US and Canada and stuff. So we're going out there as well.
And one of the final questions which I want to ask is I have been like thinking about like this specific subject a lot like during the last couple of months. Like what is the timing when clients should come to you? Like when do you give them most return on investment? Like I will tell you like super short like my thoughts around it, and it will be super awesome to hear it from you. So from my experience, the best way they do is that if they already have found a message by manually testing lots of different stuff, they come to you and you just execute on the data side, on the deliverability side, and on like mostly like technical aspect. And I know that this is true for like companies like lots of cold outreach agencies who claim to be like this kind of like more technical niche. I want to understand like for you, what is the client which is like perfect for you, for whom you can generate most amount of like money.
Yeah, man, it's not that interestingly. So like I can't think of a single client that's come to us. One, we've just had one, but then they have a proposition, but they've not been able to make it work in the cold channel. So they kind of got something that we can work with. But like in our sector, they typically don't have our job is the messaging. And I
Mhm.
think that's probably why we also get good reply rates, is because my background is in copywriting. So I've spent my whole career thinking about words and that sort of stuff. So I think it really helps to be able to craft that message. But the perfect client for us is like the growing agency, pretty decent size, like maybe 25, 30 people, kind of growing. Either the founder or the CEO is doing the sales, or they've got a head of new business that is really good at the selling bit, but has no time and no capacity to A, do the outreach themselves, or B, learn how to use the tools to do the outreach. And that's kind of the main one. Like some of our clients have justified a price point to their board by saying, well, we could go and buy all this technology, but then I'd need to learn how to use it. Or we could just spend the same with this agency, but they know what they're doing. So like, why don't we just do that? So we kind of like become a sunken cost in terms of the tech. So yeah, that's it for us, man. Like, they know what they're doing in terms of selling. And that's the main thing. Like we have a lot of clients, and I was, before I sort of took an interest in outreach, this was my old agency, who only ever used to selling to warm leads or inbound inquiries, and then you give them cold leads and they're like, what point do I make a proposal? And I'm like, not yet. Like you can't just go on that first call and be like, here's your quote. Like unless your proposition is amazing, like they're gonna need some discovery and some scoping and stuff. So it's a whole new premise for them. But if you work with someone that's done cold sales for an agency, that's great because they're typically quite old school. They rely on their network, they rely on traditional means, and you just accelerate their ability and get them in front of more people.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you very much for today's meeting, Nam. We will probably meet even more in next couple of months and produce some amazing and interesting content. So thank you very
100%.
much and have an amazing day, man.